Pound for Pound Boxing Show. I'm the host, Jermaine. I'm here alongside Tonysims. Thank you for joining me, Tony. I'm going to go into a few questions with you, Tony. What I'd like to ask you is, if you've been in the game for a long time now, you've been in boxing for a long time, and what I'd like to know is, what first got you into boxing, and what was your boxing, who's your boxing inspiration?
I got into boxing because I lived in Bethnal Green, and I basically lived opposite the, right opposite the Repton Boxing Club. So all my friends from school used to go there after school, and that's basically how I become involved.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Inspiration for boxing. My uncle was quite a well-known middleweight in the 1950s, and he became a trainer and trained Terry Spinks to the British title. So he was my inspiration when I was growing up.
Brilliant, brilliant. I want to ask you, obviously, you trained some fantastic fighters over the years and achieved a lot in the game. What was the most memorable achievement you achieved in boxing so far, of all the fighters you trained?
Probably when I went to America and took DarrenBarker to the world title, because probably, as you know, we went over there in 2011 and he fought Sergio Martinez for the world title. And we obviously, you know the story, he got stopped in the 11th round, put a great performance up. And then we went back into the same place, Atlantic City again, where he fought Daniel Gill for the IBF World Middleweight title, and he won that on points, and it was a great achievement from both of us, really, because I had him from when he left the Repton. So he had his first pro fight with me, and I took him to British, Commonwealth, European, and eventually the world title in America. And like, to go to America and win the world title is always a great achievement in any trainer's career.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that night. I watched that fight that night. Absolutely iconic. Just to hear his name announced at the end of the fight. It probably goes down as one of the most iconic nights in the British boxing history, in terms of a fighter going over the Atlantic Ocean and winning the world title.
Yeah, no, that's right. You know, it was a great achievement for us both, and it's one of the standout nights for me as a trainer.
100%, of course. I want to ask you, obviously, a lot of your fighters must be in camp now. You've got some massive fights coming up for some of your fighters over the next couple of months. How's training camp going for you and your fighters?
Yeah, so all of my fighters are going to be out like March, April time. So as you say, we're deep into camp. They've started training before Christmas actually, and like, we've been deep into camp all through January, and they're all like heading for big fights, all title fights. So yeah, it's just about getting them in condition now. February, get through February, and then March the 6th is my first one with Tedcheeseman. He's fighting for the British and Commonwealth title against Meltcalf, so he'll be the first one out of my stable. Yeah,
I mean, we know Ted very well. Obviously, our sponsor is one of Ted's sponsors as well. We had Meltcalf on a live not too long ago as well. Interviewed him. How big a fight now is that for Ted? Obviously, he's been in there with some good fighters already. This is probably one of the biggest fight of his career so far. But how big opportunity is this for Ted?
Yeah, it's a big opportunity because obviously he wants to get his British title back. He don't feel like he lost the title to Scott Fitzgerald. You know, it was a close fight, and he feels like he won that fight. So he feels like he wants to get his British title back. Obviously, Meltcalf's got the Commonwealth title, so it'd be nice for him to pick that belt up as well. But more importantly than that, they're both rated very highly with the IBF. Ted's number 8 and Meltcalf's number 5. So, like, the winner of that fight will push them further up into the IBF ratings, maybe top 3 or 4. So, you know, that's what the, you know, how big the fight is between them, is that world ranking can go really high after this fight for the winner.
Yeah, that's even more of a incentive now for both fighters, knowing that they're going to climb up the rankings and potentially go on to fight for a world title. It's a massive opportunity for both fighters.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity. As you say, Ted's been in with a lot of good fighters, and he's got a lot of experience now of doing the 12-round distance against good opposition. And, you know, JJ Metcalf's another good fighter. He's 21-0, and, you know, it's going to be a tough fight. Ted's confident, you know, he's going to win the fight. So, you know, he's feeling good in training. So as long as he prepares right, you know, he take his confidence in the ring on the night.
100%. I want to talk about another one of your fighters. It's ConorBenn. He's going to be fighting Vargas pretty soon. How big an opportunity is that for Conor? And obviously, you don't like to look past your opponents, but as if he goes on to beat Vargas, is he looking to fight Josh Kelly, winner of Josh Kelly Avanisi, or maybe the Congo Bickinson fight?
Well, the Vargas fight is obviously everybody knows Vargas from when he come over here and boxed Amir Khan, and he put a good performance in. So, and also he's been in with some really big names over in the States. So he's a big name for Conor. You know, he's a big fight for him, and you know, he's preparing for an hard fight with him. And obviously, as you say, if he wins that fight, there's massive opportunities out there on the domestic scene. You know, the Josh Kelly fight's being mooted for quite a while, but I think that'll probably that'll probably happen the end of the year, probably December time, I reckon. So he'll probably get another fight in between then, and then go on to the Kelly fight. That's how I'm hearing it's going to look. But obviously, Kelly's got to get through Avansson first, and that's a very difficult fight he's got in front of him there. And so, you know, you just got to do one fight at a time. You can call out as many names as you want, but you got to do one fight at a time. And they've both got hard fights to come through.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, you mentioned maybe Conor having another fight before he does fight the winner of obviously maybe Kelly or Avanisi. One fighter we all mentioned is a Commonwealth title champion, Commonwealth champion, and that's Chris Jenkins. Obviously, they were supposed to fight. I think it was in the back end of last year. Obviously, the arrangement couldn't be made. Is that a fight you would probably make happen if Conor does win against Vargas?
I don't know really, because I want to sort of keep Conor on the world scene now rather than dipping back into the British scene. I want to keep him on the world scene, you know. So I'll probably look at another world sort of level fighter, because I want him for him to build in. If he does fight Josh Kelly at the end of the year, I want him to build into like box a couple of world level fighters. So I doubt if like we'll look back onto the British scene. He just beat like the former IBO world champion. Now he's fighting Vargas, and we'll probably get another American in the summertime, and maybe then on to the Kelly fight in December. Probably that's the route we'll probably be looking to go. But as I say, he's got an hard fight in front of him with Vargas, and Kelly's got a hard fight in front of him. So it's hard to say really, but we've just got to take one step at a time.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, we're going to talk a bit about that Formella fight. Fantastic performance from Conor that night. It's probably the best I've seen in box in his career. Absolutely dominant from start to finish. How do you rate? What do you rate his performance that night? Yeah,
as you say, it was a good performance. You know, he stepped up a few levels to box Formella. As we know, Formella went to America and fought Sean Porter in the fight before that. And I think Conor done a better job on him than Sean Porter. I believe if it was a 12-rounder, Conor would have probably got him out there in the last couple of rounds. But you know, it's all experience for him. You know, he stepped up to the plate, and you know, as you say, he won. He was dominant in every round, and you know, he's just got to move on from there. I think Vargas would be a tougher fight than Formella was, just because of his experience. And you know, ConorBenn can learn from that sort of experience. You know, when you get in with good fighters, you know, they've been around the block a few times with good opposition. They know what they're doing in there. Their ring knowledge and ring generalship's good. So ConorBenn will learn a lot from that fight, and they're the sort of fights that I want for Conor to learn from. I want learning fights, and you know, for him to move up to the next level. And if we are talking about him boxing Josh Kelly, you know, he needs a couple of really good opponents in front of him, world level opponents that's gonna, you know, teach him that experience.
Yeah, of course, of course. I remember I've seen an interview recently with Conor coming out and saying that he would fancy maybe a fight with Sean Porter. Obviously, that's a world level fighter, former world champion. Maybe a potential fight with Sean Porter before he fights Kelly.
Yeah, well, you never know. Like I would, you know, no, you got to rate Sean Porter above Josh Kelly, you know, because of the experience of being at world level, and you know, maybe that's a fight after Josh Kelly. But what we got to do is build. You know, we've got to build into these fights now. You know, and he's got to get a bit more experience under his belt. I mean, maybe he gets another 2 fights in before he fights Josh Kelly, because he's the experience that he needs. You know, as we know, he hadn't had a lot of amateur experience. So every fight he gets, he learns something new. So it's the experience that he needs to build up into the big fights. But he's got the ability to go all that way. You know, he's got the ability. He's got the Benn name. He's got that true heart and grit that his dad had in him. You know, and desire. You know, he trains very hard, and he's very dedicated to the sport. So, you know, it's just about getting him the experience, getting him the right fights now for him to push on into world level. You know, because once he's in the world level, once you're on the world scene, then all your fights are hard. All your fights are good opponents. So you got to be ready to move into that scene.
100%. I want to talk about another one of your fighters, Felixcash. Obviously, he's been rumoured that he's maybe close to fighting Denzel Bentley. Or if not, then going for the European title. Any update on Felix in his next fight?
Not at the moment, just that I know that he's mandatory for the British title. I'm not sure when purse bids are going to go for that. Probably in February time, because as you know, the British Boxing Board of Control have suspended all boxing for January, so that's why there ain't been no purse bids submitted. So I think that he'll go out to purse bids. I think Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren will obviously bid for that fight, and we'll go from there. I know Felix wants to fight Denzel for the British title, but it's up to Eddie Hearn if what he wants to do. He's penciled Felixcash in on April the 10th on ConorBenn's show, so I don't know what he's got in mind. Whether the European's been mentioned to me a couple of times against Sagani. So, you know, I'll just see what Eddie Hearn wants to do. It's up to him, really. But all I know is Felix is getting ready for April the 10th. So whoever's in front of him, he'll be fighting.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we had an interview with Denzel Bentley. He said he's very much looking forward to that fight maybe happening. He's got his eyes on Felix. They've had a few run-ins before in the past, had a sparring session they've talked about. How highly do you rate Felix's chances against Denzel Bentley?
I think Felix can go on to be a world level fighter. You know, he's got loads of ability. He punches hard. His hands are fast. He's got all the ability. He reminds me a lot of DarrenBarker when at his stage. So I think he's got all the ability to go right through. So, you know, I think he'd like to start. You know, he's Commonwealth champion. I think he'd like to start with the British title, move on to European, and then on from there. But listen, if Eddie says here's the European title, then he's going to jump at the chance of fighting for that. It's obviously a bigger title, but you know, it just depends what Eddie's got in store for him. But I think Felix has got the ability to go all the way through to world level.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. I'm a big fan of Felix. Terrific fighter, and I believe he go far in the sport. Another one of your fighters is who I like. You know, I rate him highly, and I think he was a bit hard done by in the decision against Cannon Smith. Is JohnRyder. Obviously, he was out last year on a Triple G card. He could be fighting for a world title against David Morrell Jr. Any update on that?
So that's Yeah, so that's going to go out to purse bids. I think the WBA said they've the promoters have got 30 days. So that's PBC and Matchroom have got 30 days to come to a decision, like who's going to put that fight on. If they ain't come to the conclusion within 30 days, then it'll go out to purse bids. But I spoke to Eddie Earn last night, and he said he's only just started opening up talks with PBC for the fight. So we'll have to see, really. But he was supposed to fight for that title. That title was vacated by Canelo when he boxed Smith, which is a WBA regular title. And he was supposed to fight Chudinov for the vacant title, but for some odd reason, Chudinov didn't want to fight for it, which I thought was very strange. And he just didn't want to fight John for the regular title. So what was even stranger was David Morrell, who's the interim WBA champion, who's only had 4 bouts. He's from Cuba. I felt what was even stranger was he was supposed to be defending the interim title a few weeks ago against an opponent. I can't remember the opponent's name, but he was a poor opponent. And he didn't make weight for the interim fight. So if you don't make weight for your fight, normally you'd be stripped of the title. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they didn't strip him at the title. The fight went on as a 10-round fight, and Morrell won in the 3rd round. And then all of a sudden, Morrell said this himself in an interview, that the WBA emailed him and said, we've put you up to the regular champion now, which I thought was really weird. Really weird. So now John's a challenger instead of fighting for the vacant title. So, yeah, strange goings on.
I want to ask you a bit, lads. Let's talk a bit about WBA, because obviously recently Manny Pacquiao has been basically stripped of his title, and they've given it to Ugas, and he's now a WBA regular champion now, and he obviously could be fighting Errol Spence in a massive unification fight. What do you think? I mean, what do you think of the belts? I mean, do you reckon there's too many belts and there's a bit too much going on in the WBA at the moment?
Yeah, I think the same as everybody else. You know, like I'd like to just see the 4 belts on the line, 4 world champions. But now you've got like interims and regular belts and franchise belts and silver belts, and there's so many belts going on. That the trouble is the general public, like we as people in boxing know what's going on, but the general public don't really know what's going on. So, you know, you're putting up belts as world champions, and they're not world champions. They're like interim champions and silver champions. So no one really knows what's going on, and that's the confusing part about boxing now. Is there, you know, it's hard enough following the 4 belts, let alone following every other belt, you know. But boxing wise, as our profession in boxing, obviously we take whatever belt comes along, because belts equal money. You know, and that's what the fighters are doing it for. They're there to get money. And if them belts help them move up the ladder nearer to the world title, obviously you got to take them. And, you know, that's the predicament that we're in. But obviously, as a general public, as a fan, I would just like to see the 4 belts how they used to be, you know. But it is what it is today. And, you know, we just got to do what we got to do to get there.
Of course, of course. Another question I want to ask you, obviously, it's not a question actually, it's a congratulations. So you can pass on to maybe Conor and John Doherty himself. Obviously, they've recently become fathers. Congratulations to them both. I've recently become a father as well. To a little girl for 3 months now. So I know how it feels. So massive congratulations to both of them.
Yeah, and congratulations to you. Well done. Is that your first one, yeah?
Yeah, it's my first, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well done. That's great news.
Obviously, staying on the doc, any fight news on him? Obviously, he had a fight last time out against Jack Cullen. Didn't go the way you wanted to. It didn't go the way you wanted it to go. But is he going to be having a fight anytime soon?
No, me and the Doc have split now after that fight. So I don't know who I think he's gone with somebody else. So I don't really know who he's gone with. But it was an amicable split, and I wish John all the best. You know, he's only young and he can regroup and get there. I just think the distance away from where he was living to where he was training down there just wasn't suitable for him. So, yeah, so he's not with me now anyway.
Okay. Moving on again. Obviously, I want to talk about fighter as well that you train as well. It's MartinJward. Any update on his next fight, possibly?
Yeah, so he's going to be nominated to do the final eliminator for the IBF title. It'll be between him and there's a Japanese guy who's above him. They're the top two in the ratings. But it can't go to purse bids until Jojo Diaz has defended his title. So against the Russian Rakim. So I believe that's happening on February the 13th. So it's not far away. So I think once that fight's been done with, and then they'll call for purse bids for Martin and a Japanese guy to fight for the final eliminator. So Martin's just been ticking over really. He boxed last February, and he's just been waiting on this fight really, this final eliminator. So because the Jojo Diaz was supposed to defend last year and just kept getting put off, obviously because of the situation we're in. So now he's finally going to defend, and that's going to open up the door for Martin to do his final eliminator. So once they call purse bids, and whoever wins the bids, hopefully Match will win the bid, and then we'll know the date for when Martin's going to fight. But I'm hoping it'll be like around April time.
That's great news. Obviously, I'm a fan of Martin as well. I was hoping to see him soon, so I'm glad you've cleared that up, and he's obviously waiting for the purse bids and fight news to be announced shortly. Another question I want to ask you is, obviously, as a trainer you first trained in his early stages of his professional career is Andy Joshua. Obviously, reports are coming out that he's on the verge of fighting Tyson Fury, and we're waiting for a destination and a date. How big a fight is this for British boxing fans and for the two fighters?
Yeah, it's a massive fight for them both. You know, they're both the top two in the world. So it's a natural, it's a natural fight to make, and not just for around the world, but Britain's really interested in that fight. You know, and when have we ever had two of the best heavyweight champions of the world in Britain? You know, well, I don't think we never have. You know, so. You know, I'm looking forward to watching the fight as a fan, and it's a 50-50 fight. I'm hearing they're going to do 2 fights this year, so it's going to be a great to watch. You know, and they're 2 very big personalities. You know, it's just going to be a great event to watch, and you know, I'm excited about watching it.
Yeah, I mean, if they do have 2 fights and the second destination has not been obviously being chosen yet, would you hope it's going to be held in the UK?
Yeah, I'd love to see it in the UK, like everybody else. You know, two Britons fighting for the heavyweight title. You'd love to see it in the UK. I just don't know whether the money's here for them both to fight in the UK. You know, you got to realise how much money is going to be involved in that fight, and obviously they're probably looking at it as probably both their final fights of their careers. So they're going to want to rake in as much as they can, you know, and by fighting in the Middle East, I think that's where the big money will be, you know, put up for them to fight. And, you know, if you look at in history, if you look at all the other big fights that went down, like Ali Foreman was in Zaire, and, you know, Fraser Ali was in the Philippines. So, you know, these big fights, when they happen in these countries, you know, that they're putting the country on the map, and that's why a lot of it's like government money where it's coming from as well, to put the actual country on the map, you know. And we remember these big fights in history, and you know, the Thrilla in Manila, you know, and things like that. And, you know, it put that country on the map at that time. And, you know, the Middle East, they've got the money and to do this fight, these two fights, and, you know, and it'll put them on the map in the world, you know. Everyone will know that country and that, you know, that city from putting them fights on.
Of course, I 100% agree with you. Obviously, Anthony had one of his last fights in Saudi Arabia. That put Saudi Arabia on the map as well. And I'm sure having two great champions, British champions, going out to a country is going to put British boxing on the map as well in those countries.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and they'll probably earn double the money fighting there than they're going to be fighting in the UK. And as much as we would all love to go to Wembley Arena and watch that fight, and I'm sure it would sell out straight away. You know, as a fighter, you want to get as much money as you can before you retire, and, you know, they're probably going to earn double the amount fighting over there than they would here. So really something that they can't really turn down.
I 100% agree with you. Obviously, before I let you go, Tony, question I want to ask you is, what is your long-term and short-term goal for you and your fighters?
Well, I've got 6 fighters that I'm training now, so they're all world ranked, all 6 of them. So you got JoeCordina, who's world ranked. He's fighting on March the 20th. So I'm hoping he's going to fight for a world title this year, by the end of the year. You got MartinJward, who's doing a final eliminator for the IBF world title. You've got Tedcheeseman, as I said earlier, he's ranked in the IBF. So if he beats Meltcalf, he's going to be highly ranked. Felixcash is going to come from, you know, he's just slipped into the WBO ratings at 15, so he's world ranked for the first time, but obviously he needs to clear up the domestic scene, which he's going to be, you know, shortly contesting that British and European titles. Then obviously JohnRyder's fighting for that WBA regular, so I'm hoping he's going to come through this year in his next fight actually. And who else did I mention?
You got to mention Conor as well.
Ryder. Yeah, of course. And ConorBenn, like I spoke earlier about ConorBenn, he's world ranked, and as I was saying earlier, plan for him to fight world ranked fighters this year. You know, culminating in the end fight with Kelly, hopefully. So that'll push him on for next year, pushing into the world scene, and hopefully next year he'll be fighting for a world title. So that's my ambitions for this year. I'm going into early next year that all 6 of them fight for the world title.
Exciting times for you and your fighters, and exciting times for British boxing fans in general. Tony, I'd like to thank you again for your time today, and I wish you and your fighters all the best going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that anyway.
Thank you very much. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. God bless.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Bye.